Good morning, all of you. Here I am Dr. Apeksha, and today we are going to discuss on the topic dictionary introduction and its type. So, in this topic, we are going to cover the basic meaning of dictionary, the types of dictionary, differences between dictionary and thesaurus. Then comes the importance of dictionary, and lastly, we are going to discuss about the significance of dictionary. So, so there is here are some of learning objectives of this topic, that is to identify various aspects of dictionary, identify the features of dictionary, and how to use the correct form of dictionary for varying purposes, and to learn the significance of dictionary and also to analyze the usage of dictionary. Next, starting with the introduction part, a dictionary is a listing of words in one or more specific languages, often arranged alphabetically, which may include information on definitions, usage, etymologies, pronunciation, translation, etc., or a book of words in one language with their equivalents in another, sometimes known as lexicon. Okay, it is a lexicographical references that shows interrelationships among the data. Dictionary or reference books that list words in order, usually for Western languages, alphabetical, and gives their meanings. In addition to its basic functions of defining words, a dictionary may provide information about their pronunciation, grammatical forms, and functions, etymologies, syntactic peculiarities, variant spellings, and antonyms. A dictionary may also provide quotations illustrating a word's use, and these may be dated to show the earliest known uses of the word in specified senses. The word dictionary comes from the Latin dictio, which means the act of speaking, and dictionarius, a collection of words. Although encyclopedians are a different type of reference work, some use the word dictionary in their names. For example, biographical dictionaries. Basically, a dictionary lists a set of words with information about them. The list may attempt to be a complete inventory of a language or may be only a small segment of it. A short list, sometimes at the back of a book, is often called a glossary. When a word lists in an index to a limited body of writing with references to each passage, it is called concordance. Theoretically, a good dictionary could be compiled by organizing into one list a large number of concordances. A word list that consists of geographic names only is also called a gazetteer. The word lexicon designates a word book, but it also has a special abstract meaning among linguists. Next, a broad distinction is made between general and specialized dictionaries. One can say that specialized dictionaries includes words in specialist fields rather than a complete range of words in the language. There are other types of dictionaries that do not fit nearly into the above distinction. For instance, bilingual, or you can say translation dictionaries, dictionaries of synonyms, or you can say theory, and rhyming dictionaries. The word dictionary is usually understood to refer to a general purpose or monolingual dictionary. The compilation of a dictionary is lexicography. Lexicology is a branch of linguistics in which, with the utmost scientific rigor, the theories that lexicographers use in the solution of their problems are developed. The assembling of words into groups related by some principle as by their meanings can be done, and such a work is often called thesaurus or synonym. Such works, however, need an index for ease of reference, and it is unlikely that alphabetical order will be superseded except in specialized works. So, coming to the history part, the word dictionary was invented by an Englishman called John of Garland in 1220. He had written a book, Dictionarius, To help with Latin diction, an early non-alphabetical list of 8,000 English words, which was the Elementaire created by Richard Mulcaster in 1582. This created more interest in the dictionaries. The first purely English alphabetical dictionary was A Table Alphabetical, written by English school teacher Robert Cordray in 1604. The only surviving copy is found at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. This dictionary and the many imitators which followed it was seen as unreliable and nowhere near definitive. Philip Stanhope, 4th Earl of Chesterfield, was still lamenting in 1754, 150 years after Cowdray's publication, that it is a sort of disgrace to our nation that hitherto we have had no in 1754 to 150 years after Cowdray's publication, that it is a sort of disgrace to our nation that hitherto we have had no standard of our language, our dictionaries at present being more properly what our neighbors the Dutch and the Germans call their word books. The dictionaries in the superior sense is that title. Johnson's dictionary remained the English language standard for over 150 years until the Oxford University Press began writing and releasing finally released the complete Oxford English Dictionary in 12 volumes in 1928. It remains the most comprehensive and trusted English language dictionary to this day, with revisions and updates added by a dedicated team every 3 months. Oxford Dictionary is the principal historical dictionary of the English language published by Oxford University Press. It traces the historical development of the English language, providing a comprehensive resource to scholars and academic researchers, as well as describing usage in its many variations throughout the world. The second edition, comprising 21,728 pages in 20 volumes, was published in 1989. The first electronic version of the dictionary was made available in 1988. The online version has been available since 2000 and as of April 2014 was receiving over 2 million visits per month. The third edition of the dictionary will most likely only appear in electronic form. The chief executive of Oxford University Press has stated that it is unlikely that it will ever be printed. Now talking about the history and significance, language is fluid. In fact, the most recent edition of the Merriam-Webster dictionary boasts 1700 new entries, including photobomb, meme, emoji, and jagging. Looking back at the history of language, it is interesting to note that Noah Webster, the father of the American dictionary, came of age during the American Revolution. At that time, words had the power to define our national identity. Later, they had the power to reflect that new identity as it evolved. Webster believed that Great Britain, whose children we are and whose language we speak, should no longer be our standard, and so he set out to create a new standard. Talking about the old standard of Samuel Johnson's dictionary, the preeminent English dictionary was Samuel Johnson's. It was published in 1755 and had taken 9 years to complete. Its entries were unique in that Johnson used literary quotations to illustrate the meaning of a word. He often cited William Shakespeare, John Milton, and John Dryden. He also incorporated humor into his definitions. Now, talking about the Webster's Dictionary, the New Standard Dictionary, Samuel Johnson once said that no man was ever great by imitation. It appears Noah Webster took this maxim to heart, as he undertook the writings of Webster's American Dictionary of English Language in 1828. Among his innovations was the inclusion of distinctively American vocabulary. He wrote an entry for skunk describing it as in America a fetid animal of the viscal kind, and another for hickory, whose etymology has Virginian Algonquian roots. Webster considered etymology important, as evidenced by the fact that he learned 26 languages in order to more effectively research origins. Not only were some of Webster's words and definitions without precedent, so were some of his spellings. He opted to simplify some spellings and to make changes in others to more accurately reflect their phonetic pronunciation. For instance, he changed honor to honor, plow to plow, and center to center. Not all of his attempts at transforming the language was successful. However, changing woman to women and tongue to tongue met with more resistance. Now, talking about the kinds of dictionary, general purpose dictionaries. Um, the first kind of dictionary you can say is the general purpose dictionaries. Although when we speak of a general purpose dictionary, it must be realized that every dictionary is compiled with a particular set of uses in mind. In turn, the public has come to expect certain conventional features, and a publisher departs from the conventions at his peril. One of the chief demands that a dictionary should be authoritative, but the word authoritative is ambiguous. It can refer to the quality of scholarships and the employment of the soundest information available, or it can describe a prescriptive demand for compliance to particular standards. Many people ask for arbitrary decisions in usage choices, but more linguists feel that when a dictionary goes beyond its function of recording accurate information on the state of the language, it becomes a bad dictionary. Now, according to Merriam and Random, now next is the Merriam and Random House Dictionary. Most people knows dictionary in the abridged-sized, commonly called desk or college-sized dictionaries. Such abridgment date to the 18th century. Their form had become stilified until in the 1930s. His dictionaries were not museums, but tools that encouraged school children to learn about language. He drew upon his word counts, and his semantic counts to determine inclusions. The new mode was carried on to the college level by Clarence L. Barnhart in the American College Dictionary in 1947. After mid-century, other college-size works were revised to meet that competition. Webster's New World Dictionary of the American Language, the Merriam-Webster's Seventh New Collegiate 1963, and the Standard College Dictionary 1963 again. An especially valuable addition was the Random House Dictionary in 1966, edited by Justian in a middle size called the Unabridged, and by Lawrence Urdung in a smaller size, which was published in 1968. Next here you will find that even previously the dictionary used to give such these informations like spellings. You can find the syllables also, how many a single word is made up of how many syllables. Okay, you will get to know about the pronunciation by reading the IPA symbols. You can see here it's clearly mentioned. Okay, next is the part of the speech. What part of a speech has been used in this words, and sources from where its origin began. Okay, the meaning of that word. Okay, all the original meanings. Okay, dates of earliest recorded use in English, and also the illustration, even the illustration by means of a picture or a sketch. Next is Merriam-Webster International. The Merriam-Webster New International of 1909 had a serene, unclustered air. The second edition, completely re-edited, appeared in 1934, and it in turn was superseded in 1961 by the third New International, edited by Philip Babcock Gove. As its first publication, it stood alone among American dictionaries in giving a full report on the lexicon of present-day English, because it, together with its supplements, is now available online. It is regularly updated. The pre-publication publicity emphasized quotations from writers dismissed as ephemeral, such as Polly Adler, Ethel Merman, and Mickey Spillane, as well as a dictionary statement about antas used orally in most parts of the US by many cultivated speakers. Such publicity aroused a storm of denunciation in newspapers and magazines by writers who others asserted revealed a shocking ignorance of the nature of the language. Next is American Heritage Dictionary. In 1969 came the American Heritage Dictionary, edited by William Morris, who was known for his valuable small dictionary words Published in 1947, The American Heritage was designed to take advantage of the reaction against the Merriam-Webster's third. Their pronouncements, found by scholars to be inconsistent, were intended to provide the essential dimension of guidance. In England, Henry Cecil produced his Universal Dictionary of the English Language in 1932, which was admirable in every way except for its social class elitism. Next is scholarly dictionaries. Beyond the dictionaries intended for practical use by the general public are the scholarly dictionaries with the scientific goal of completeness and rigor in their chosen area. Probably the most scholarly dictionaries in the world is the Thesaurus Lingua Latiniae, edited by Germany and Austria. Its main collections were made from 1883 to 1900 when publication began, but by the turn of the 21st century, its publication had reached only the letter P. A number of countries that have had national dictionaries underway, projects that often take many decades. Of outstanding scholarships are an Encyclopedia Dictionary of Sanskrit on Historical Principles, which began in 1976, prepared at Pune, India, and the Historical Dictionary of the Hebrew Language in progress in Jerusalem. Next is the Oxford English Dictionary. The Oxford English Dictionary remains the supreme completed achievement in all lexicography. After completion of the first edition 1928, the remaining quotations, both used and unused, were divided up for use in a set of period dictionaries. The prime mover of this plan, Sir William Craig, undertook a dictionary of the older Scottish tongue himself, covering the period from the 14th to the 17th century in Scottish speech. Enough materials was amassed under his direction so that editing could begin in 1925, and before his death in 1957 he arranged that it should be carried on at the University of Edinburgh. It was completed in 2003. A dictionary of Old English is based on a combining of computerized concordances of bodies of Old English literature, a Middle English dictionary covering the period 1100 to 1475, and was completed in 2001 with an overwhelming fullness of details. Next is specialized dictionaries. Specialized dictionaries are overwhelming in their variety and their diversity. Each area of lexical study, such as etymology, pronunciation, and usage, can have a dictionary of its own. The earliest important dictionary of etymology for English was Stephen Skinner's Etymologicon Lingua Anglican of 1671 in Latin, with a strong bias for finding a classical origin for every English word. In the 18th century, a number of dictionaries were published that traced most English words to Celtic sources because the authors did not realize that the words had been borrowed into Celtic rather than the others way around. Next, we'll talk about the certain important practice questions, that what do you mean by the term dictionary, elucidate the historical significance of dictionary, explain the differences between dictionary and thesaurus, analyze various types of dictionary, and explain the differences between scholarly dictionary and specialized dictionary. Here are some references which you can go through. Thank you.